Bernie Sanders supporters are crying foul once again, this time in Nevada, where they feel that the state's Democratic Party is unfairly trying to stifle their chosen candidate. Meanwhile, Portugal took a massive step forward in the world of renewable energy, Russian Olympians are exposed in a doping scandal, and hey, what the hell's going on in Brazil? It's time to find out. This is The Loop. Nevada is a political battleground this week, 3 months after the Democratic caucus in February. So what the hell happened? Well, over the weekend, the state's Democratic Party held their convention at the Paris Las Vegas Hotel, and due to the state party's rules, 58 of the pledged delegates that Bernie Sanders won back in February were deemed ineligible. Wait, what? He won them back in February. What kind of evil conspiratorial BS is this? Well, Nevada's Democratic Party requires that all party delegates, regardless of who they support, be required to register as Democrats by May 1st of this year, and also be able to provide appropriate identification at the state convention. Sanders supporters argue that the state party is actively trying to prevent Sanders from winning the nomination, and that these rules are actively biased against the candidate. But these rules have been on the books since 2008. All of the delegates knew, or at least had access to these rules. The Sanders campaign, or really anyone in contact with these delegates, knew that the delegates had to achieve these requirements to be recognized. So aren't the only people that these rules are biased against the people who didn't follow the rules? It's not the party's fault that these delegates are unprepared. It's the Nevada Democratic delegates who didn't do the easiest part of their job, registering as Nevada Democrats. Guys, here's a link to register as a Democrat. You couldn't click a link? Don't you have a staff to remind you to do the fundamental tenets of your job? Now, let me clarify some things before we continue. A lot of people are up in arms about the fact that A, the Nevada Democrats created temporary rules for the convention mere hours before it started, giving state Democratic Chair Roberta Lang the power to run the convention as she saw fit. B, that she ignored a point of order that would have addressed the delegate controversy. And that C, she ended the convention 3 hours early, effectively ending the conversation without allowing Bernie supporters to have their say. And I will agree, that's BS. However, none of those points would have changed the rules that have been on the books since 2008. To claim that they're unfair now, only when they affect your candidate's chances of winning, is not your best look, fam. And also totally not worth posting Roberta Lang's personal address and cell phone number on the internet and flooding her with threats of violence. Check out one of the voicemails left on Lang's cell phone.
Hi, Roberta Lang. This is a citizen of the United States of America, and I just wanted to let you know that I think people like you should be hung in a public execution to show this world that we won't stand for this sort of corruption. I don't know what kind of money they're paying for you, but I don't know how you sleep at night. You are a sick, twisted piece of shit.
Bernie responded to the criticism that his supporters have received, saying that within the last few days there have been a number of criticisms made against my campaign organization. Party leaders in Nevada, for example, claim that the Sanders campaign has a penchant for violence. That is nonsense. Our campaign, of course, believes in nonviolent change, and it goes without saying that I condemn any and all forms of violence, including the personal harassment of individuals. But when we speak of violence, I should add here that months ago, during the Nevada campaign, shots were fired into my campaign office in Nevada, and apartment housing complex my campaign staff lived in was broken into and ransacked. Now, let me be clear about something. I was an early supporter of Bernie Sanders for president. I believe that he has a lot of good qualities as a leader, but this quote is incredibly troubling to me for a few reasons. Now, Bernie is right in some regards. To say that his campaign has a penchant for violence is wrong. He's never actively courted violence, like how Donald Trump mentioned at one rally that he'd like to punch a protester in the face.
Smiling, laughing, like to punch him in the face, I'll tell you.
However, after making that good point, he shoehorns in that his campaign was attacked months ago. He doesn't outright say that the Nevada Democratic Party let this happen or perpetrated it, but he's too smart a man to not see what putting these 2 points next to each other implies for some people. It implies not just bias, but a potentially violent conspiracy against him, which is, in a word, bullshit. It's not enough to say that you hate violence. You have to say that anyone who commits violence for you is not a real supporter of you. This is especially sad considering that nothing that these rogue supporters are doing will help him get those delegates back. I thought that Bernie Sanders was above manipulation. I hope that this doesn't point to darker days ahead for the embattled candidate. Meanwhile, European nation Portugal made worldwide headlines this week by powering their entire country with only renewable energy for 107 hours. That's over 10 million people living, working, and/or Netflix and chilling for over 4 straight days on wind, solar, and hydroelectric power alone. Take that, global warming. I'll bet the Lorax is hard as a rock right now. This is a huge step forward for Portugal, which has long been maligned in the EU for their high dependence on coal, natural gas, and Cristiano Ronaldo. It's a gauntlet thrown into the world of green energy, saying we're green, we're lean, and for the last time, we're in Europe, not South America, you dumbass kids. You're thinking of Puerto Rico. With any luck, Portugal's great strides here will encourage more nations to push for greener pastures instead of fracking up nature for good, Hillary and Donald. Hello, God, it's me, Russia. I know that we haven't spoken in a while, and I've kind of blamed you for the wild dogs, extreme winters, and Vladimir Putin's shirtless golem body. But if you could just help us dominate the 2014 Sochi Olympic Games, it would mean a lot. Or wait, I could just follow every Russian stereotype and turn our athletes into the figure skating and snowboarding equivalents of the Winter Soldier. Yes, the New York Times this week broke the story that nearly half of Russia's medal-winning athletes from the 2014 Sochi Winter Olympics were doped up on a drug cocktail composed of steroids metenolone, trenbolone, oxandrolone, waffle cone, and ramenbarone. Dr. Grigory Rodchenkov, the director of Russia's state-sponsored performance enhancement program, said that to minimize the window of detection, the drugs were mixed with whiskey for the male athletes, and for the women, the drugs were mixed with straight vermouth, also known as the gulag of liquors. This story should come as a shock to no one, as it's freaking Russia, the country where bear attacks are on the rise, and the leading cause of death in men is vodka. Really. It's like r/WTF founded a country and then left it to fend for itself. The question is, will Russia attempt to stack the deck at 2016's Rio Summer Games with another army of Ivan Dragos and Dragettes? Probably. Speaking of Rio de Janeiro, what the ever-lovin' merda is going on in Brazil? You know that a country is in serious trouble when being the epicenter of the still ongoing Zika virus outbreak isn't their biggest problem. Up until last week, the nation was run by President Dilma Rousseff, who was removed from power due to potentially corrupt budgetary policies, as well as involvement in Brazil's infamous Petrobras scandal. Without getting too deep into it, Petrobras is a state-owned oil company that has apparently been taking bribes for over 10 years from companies looking to score lucrative contracts. Over 100 politicians, executives, and others have already been implicated in the scandal and its subsequent cover-up. However, Rousseff claims that she's innocent of all crimes and that these impeachment proceedings are a smokescreen for a coup by right-wing conservative factions of the Brazilian government. So who's telling the truth? Well, it's kind of hard to tell because seemingly everyone in the Brazilian government is corrupt right now. On the left, we have not only Rousseff, but José Dirceu, a former Brazilian chief of staff who was just sentenced to 23 years in prison for his involvement in the Petrobras scandal. Meanwhile, on the right, we have Rousseff's replacement, acting President Michel Temer, who was recently found guilty of campaign finance violations. Wait. So you replaced a potential criminal with a convicted criminal. Brazil, what you doing? It's like replacing 1994 O.J. Simpson with 2007 O.J. Simpson. You know they both did it, but one's way worse than the other. It's an upgrade in 0 ways. A convicted criminal is currently running a country during its worst recession in decades, mere weeks before the freaking Olympics, while a debilitating virus sweeps the nation. But rather than fix those problems, President Temer is basically someone wearing 10-inch heels on a bumpy road. He be trippin'. He just appointed Congressman Andre Moura as head of Brazil's Chamber of Deputies. Moura is not only under investigation for the Petrobras scandal, he's also under investigation by the Supreme Court for attempted murder. Coming to Brazil this summer, it's the comedy smash Guilty and Guiltier, and we thought we were screwed here. Hey US, it could be worse. So now I want to hear from you. What do you think about these stories? How do you feel about what happened in Nevada? How do you feel about Portugal running on renewable energy? What the hell is going on in Brazil? And should Russia be brought up on charges for doping all those athletes? Let us know down in the comments below and continue to give me your feedback on The Loop. This show is continuing to evolve based on your feedback and I really, really appreciate it. And if you want even more global news, check out our friends at Seeker Daily, putting out global news stories every single day of the week. You can click right now to subscribe to their channel. And just so you know, The Loop will be taking a short hiatus as I'm going out of town until early June. We're gonna be back on Saturday, June 11th. Thanks for your patience. I'm Matt Lieberman, and until next time, you're in The Loop. Thanks for watching. However, Mr. Trump isn't just making wisecracks and blowing up your Twitter feed. His campaign is hard at work.
Like this, and I just threw up. It went sideways everywhere.